recorded. And awesome. So just to kind of give you an overview, our program is operating two bubbles that you see in red. So one is the seminar, it's part of it. So the idea here is that we want to give you, we want to give you exposure to the IT tech industry through these seminars. So you learn more about what the tech industry is about. So you're better, you have a better comprehension about the industry, so you can better navigate it as a career opportunity. Again, I apologize for the sound you're hearing in the background here. The other aspect of this is we will be running a hackathon. So this is called Hack Tech. This will be happening in late January is when we'll be hosting this online. And then the other bubble that we're delivering is Experience Tech. So this is specifically for final year students, where we train you about the industry. CompTIA, as our partner, offers an in-kind certification course. And then with our industry partners, we work to line up internship and job shadow for the students we're able to select. So in essence, what we're looking to do, as you see at the bottom left there, you as students are in disciplines, be it in the business school or in engineering or in arts or the sciences, you're in disciplines becoming subject matter experts in this specific topic area. What we're looking to do is help you transition into the IT tech industry as employees. And just a reminder for the final year students, our deadline is November 30th for your application. If you're looking to be able to secure an internship in May 2021 to our program. I just want to recognize our advisory board. A number of them are here in the Zoom call as well, and just want to thank them for their efforts in building this program. This program is built by industry, for industry, and these individuals have really championed the program and bringing it to you today. So I want to thank every single one of them. So with that, I just want to flag our next one will be on December 3rd from 12 to 1. There will be an RSVP link we'll put in the module. And then, so again, without further ado, I want to introduce our host for the seminar. It will be Charlie Atkinson. So Charlie is a seasoned business executive who has progressively climbed the career ladder over 35+ years in the IT industry. His credo is business as a results contest, has been consistently applied throughout his career and is foundational to his success in many roles he has enjoyed across sales and marketing, leading into executive leadership roles, such as his most recent as president of HPE, and now his current as president of the Winning Practice, where he consults with business leaders in helping them rise up with his formula for results, inspired strategic excellence. So without further ado, Charlie, I will unshare my screen and you can take the reins of the seminar. Go ahead. So you are on
yeah,
okay,
so let me just get into presenter mode here.
Sure.
So good afternoon, everyone, and Adnan, to you and the advisory board, thank you for the opportunity to host today's webinar and panel. The Tech Talent Accelerator is a great resource initiative. I wish I would have had it, back in my day. And I'm really excited to be able to have the opportunity to contribute to today's session and the program. Today, what I'd like to do is just provide you a really brief introduction to me, a little bit about my background, and then I want to dive quickly into the 4 levels of selling. From that, I think it'll set the stage for a really rich and robust panel discussion with our panelists today, and encourage you to, amass your Q&A, your questions in the chat box, so that when we get to that portion of the agenda, that we can have some great answers. So with that, as Adnan said, I started the Winning Practice 3 years ago after spending more than 35 years across different avenues in the technology industry. And I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to meet so many people and have a really rich and exciting experience enabled by sales in the tech business. And, when you look at it, I started out back in the late 70s. And the first level of selling for me was at the transactional level. And so when you think about it, my beginning was very simple. In transactional selling, customers come in, um, they have a need, you take their order. So for me, back in 1979, I sold paint and wallpaper at St. Clair Paint and Paper. And, it was really simple. It was easy to please people. You bring them in. I want to buy a gallon of paint. Do you know which color do you want? Semi-gloss, whatever it is, and out the door they go. Selling at St. Clair Paint and Paper really inspired me because I got to meet with people and I learned very quickly that I'm a people person. So when I graduated from the marketing program at Lambton College, I decided that I wanted to continue my career in selling. So I moved to the next level, which is feature selling. And feature selling is really about solving problems or answering questions to help your customer make a decision and to make a selection. And when you get to the right inflection point where you've got their interests and needs aligned with your solution and the opportunity to serve them, you close the deal. So when I graduated from Lambton College, I moved down to Toronto and I literally started selling photocopiers out of the trunk of my car. I did 20 cold calls a day on average. I'd pull the machines out of the trunk of my car twice a day on average, and I'd sell 3 photocopiers a month. And if you think about what I just said from a numeric standpoint, you do that consistently 5 days a week. It's 100 cold calls to do 10 demos to make 3 sales. And for me, what was exciting about it, I was pretty much running my own business, right? The more volume of calls that I made, the more sales that I made. And I realized that out of 100 cold calls, I'm making 3 sales. It's 97% rejection to find those 3 opportunities to win and make success happen. And I absolutely loved it. And I stuck with it. And a little later on in my career progression, I ended up moving forward into what's called value selling. And back in my day, it really was the pinnacle of a sales career. And today it remains really relevant when the solutions aren't terribly complex or the sales cycles aren't very, very long. And value selling really focuses on customer benefits and it takes a consultative approach to solving customers' problems. So in this area, it kind of tied me back to my career at Xerox, where we were selling photocopiers and duplicators. The one illustrated here was a Docutech 135, and the configurations could easily get up to $150,000. So the more that you can relate how to convert the features, the advantages, and the benefits into value for the client that differentiates you from the competition, the more you solve and the more you sell. So from there, the next progression is to get into consultative selling. Today, for me, it's really the holy grail in terms of selling skills because it takes everything into account from both feature selling and value selling. And it adds elements like industry insights, and you actually advise the customer instead of selling to them. So, for example, I could go into a consultative pitch in the computing industry with my background at Hewlett Packard Enterprise and tell people that you've got racks and rows of servers and storage infrastructure in your data center. And today's studies show that in your industry, moving your computing workloads to the cloud not only reduces cost and complexity, but it also reduces capital intensity and shortens time to value when introducing new applications. And the thing that I loved about the 4 levels of selling is that when you look at it, sales is really the profession that provides you with the highest return, highest paid hard work, or lowest paid easy work. And when you're moving through the progression in transactional and feature selling, the greater the volume, the more calls you make, the more sales you make, the higher the return. And as you move into value selling and consultative selling, when you're solving and advising, the greater the impact that you bring to your customers, the higher the returns get. So over the course of my 35-year career, I learned quite a few lessons. And the lessons for me were that many people will try and jump a level and oftentimes they fail to make the leap. That it is a progression, and if you can master the progression well, your career can take you to some very, very interesting places. I started out a college graduate selling photocopiers out of the trunk of my car. And, I ended up as the managing director, the president of Hewlett Packard Enterprise, $1 billion plus entity with over 1,000 employees. And so highest paid hard work, with the emphasis on working hard and working smart, really pays great dividends and rewards. So with that, I'd like to use that as the foundation to really set the stage for our panel discussion today. And unfortunately, one of our panelists, Amninder Deol, is on today's call with us. In today's pandemic, Amninder, unfortunately or fortunately, is one of those individuals that has been stricken by COVID-19. She's doing really well. We thought she'd be able to participate with us today, but she's not feeling 100%. So she'll be participating as a listener. And Lauren Armstrong and Zach Dixon are joining us. And we're going to take you through a little bit of their career journey and how the 4 levels of selling apply. So without further ado, Lauren and Zach. Lauren, if I could start with you, do you mind doing just a brief intro?
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay, Charlie?
You bet, 100%.
Good. So, hey, everyone, Lauren Armstrong. I am currently the account executive at Microsoft Canada, covering healthcare in Ontario. So I work with a lot of our hospitals, especially through this pandemic, to build strategies to help them transform their business. I started 6 years ago. I graduated from Laurier in Waterloo, and I got a job at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, where I started as an inside sales rep. So to, a couple of Charlie's points there, started with some very transactional selling practices, and through my, journey at HPE, went from inside sales rep, eventually moving into a account manager field role. I was able to practice some of the kind of next steps in, value selling, and eventually getting me to where I am today. So great to be a part of this panel. Thanks, Charlie, for including me.
Oh, thank you, and glad to have you here. Zach?
Hey folks, good afternoon. I'm Zach Dixon. I get the privilege of leading the partner sales organization for Veeam software, which is a provider of backup and cloud data management software across the globe. I've had the unique pleasure of working with both Charlie and with Lauren in my previous life as well at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, where I call it, I got my first big boy job many, many years ago, and then had a chance to move around and up until departing about a year ago for Veeam software, and really excited to be part of the panel today and see some familiar faces, and hopefully we can share some stuff with you guys that's valuable as you move forward in your careers.
Terrific. Zach, great to see you. And you got the Movember stat happening.
I'll apologize for that vulgarity, but we got a week left, and we've almost raised $6,000 here at Veeam Software, so we're happy about that.
Good for you. Well, no apologies required. I'm playing the hippie role. I haven't had a haircut since January the 10th. So, Lauren, if I could start with you, maybe you could give us a little bit of a sense for, why did you choose sales as your profession?
Yeah, sure. So I actually started in communications. I took communications with a minor of business. So my, plan was to go into marketing. Realized quickly after graduating university that a lot of the roles in marketing required, 3 to 5 to 10 years experience. And I needed to start somewhere. And so, I took a look at sales, figuring, it's every organization where they have, a marketing department, there's also sales, good place to start. I joined at Hewlett Packard Enterprise and realized there's a lot more to sales. It's not just, selling a product, but it's really coming to your customers with, problem solving and a more consultative approach to, selling your products. And so although I thought it would be, spend a couple years in sales and then maybe move to marketing, I don't see that happening now. I'm in the game. It's fantastic. And, really learned from some of the best sales individuals how to, really create a strong career in sales. So
Perfect. And what was your first role in sales?
Yeah, so I started as an inside sales rep. Actually, I would say, previously I'd worked in retail. So, there was definitely some transactional selling there, similar to your experience, Charlie, selling paint. I would say then when I moved into my role at Hewlett Packard, it was an inside sales role. And so, I was a part of a team. We were, making a quota, but I had specific responsibilities, and it was, I would say more of the tactical day-to-day selling. Through that year and a half that I spent in an inside sales role, I was able to develop a lot of the skills required to kind of get me to the next role, which was a client-facing account manager role. But a lot of the skills that I developed over that year and a half wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have been able to be a strong team member in that account manager role without having done inside sales first.
Yeah, great. Zach, can I ask you the same question? Why did you choose sales? I mean, you're a big baseball guy, right?
Yeah. So, I have a pretty short answer. And it was because I wanted to buy a girlfriend a ring to make her a fiance. And, I spent my university years down in the southern US playing baseball on scholarship. I got a degree in journalism. I got a degree in political science. And I quickly found out that the path to that engagement ring was going to be a bit longer if I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. So, I kind of happened upon this opportunity with HP for an inside sales role many years ago. And I think looking back, what a great stroke of luck I had to find the opportunity, be able to seize that opportunity, because the competitive spirit that I have, and Charlie talked about as well, being a social person and a people person. There's really no better line of work than sales to satisfy and scratch both of those itches. So for me, I think I was lucky. I was really lucky to find that type of role at a company that offered such a broad and diverse and challenging path forward with lots of opportunities. So that's how I landed there.
Yeah, I'd have to disagree with you on the you got lucky. I mean, I was there on your first round of interviews, and you made your own luck. And I think it's a big thing in sales that we all have to be responsible and accountable for our own destiny and the outcomes and the outputs. Both you and Lauren certainly made your own luck in landing the roles that you did. Do you want to share with us where you started into your sales orbit?
Yeah, so my first role was inside sales, just like Lauren. And for the record, I have to say, Lauren was my inside seller at one point in time, and she was the best in the business. So she's selling herself short. She says otherwise. But yeah, an inside sales role. So like Lauren said, at times it can feel administrative. At times it can feel a bit tactical. But what it afforded me at the time was really a taste of what the industry is all about, as well as what sales is about. And I was fortunate to have a bunch of mentors, people that allowed me to see how they worked, to ride in the cockpit with them. And that to me, I look back on the first kind of 12 months of my career in this industry as really being defining for me as to how I would carry on with every role ever since. So my encouragement to folks on the line in that regard is to get in where you can get in, quite frankly. And once you're in, take every opportunity to learn from people that you perceive as being successful. And there's a little bit of faking it until you make it in that type of role. So if you can find a great spot at a great company that's a low-level inside sales job that looks a bit tactical, don't shy away from the hard work, because it sets you up well for everything to come.
That's great guidance and insight. And folks, I wouldn't consider an inside sales role a low-level role. It truly is a vital role. Sales to companies is like oxygen to our lives, right? And the role to generate revenue has such a high degree of importance. And when you look at what I call sales process execution and the life cycle of a sale, that there's no one role that's more important than another. And you know, the importance is really to you in finding a role that you can be passionate about, that you can be challenged with. And with that, Lauren, like maybe you could talk about what your biggest challenge was in your beginning in inside sales.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, inside sales in itself is extremely challenging. Cold calling is hard to face rejection or, you know, not feeling like you're strong technically. I think from my background specifically, I came from, you know, a communications and a business background, and walking in selling servers and storage and networking was a whole different universe to me. So I think there's a lot of challenges and roadblocks that you'll face, but there's also a lot of opportunities to, you know, learn. And something that Charlie always says is, you know, remain a student of the business. And I think that's something that, you know, you really have to learn early on in your career, that every day, you know, there's going to be challenges, but the more you can prepare, so, you know, learning about those products, spending time with mentors, doing your due diligence in kind of preparing for your role really helps overcome some of those challenges that you will face early on. I mean, I still face it today. I don't think a lot of those challenges go away. They just change.
They do. They absolutely do. I mean, I've had the opportunity to work with some of the CEOs of the largest companies that we have in Canada, and you'd think after 35 years, you'd lose the butterflies and you'd lose the nervousness. But the thing everyone has to realize is whether you're selling paint and wallpaper or copiers or, you know, $50 million technology solutions, people buy from people. The people that you're selling to are just like you are. You know, we're all the same. And if they like you, that's half the challenge, right? Because they buy from you first. They buy from your company second, they buy your product third, and really price is the fourth factor in. And, you know, I think both of you have probably had that experience. You get people to like you, and the battle is 2/3 of the way done. So, Zach, maybe if I could ask you to talk about what was your biggest fear that you
Yeah.
had to overcome when you took the chair?
Yeah. So mine was a much more kind of visceral fear of presenting in front of people. Funny enough. So I think that's one thing that a lot of folks struggle with is the concept of public speaking. And I think to really excel in a sales role and to move up in terms of responsibility and scope, it's an important piece of your day-to-day life is not necessarily presenting on, you know, the big stage, but being able to develop a perspective and articulate it with confidence in front of someone that you want to convince of something, right? And so, you know, I remember my 8th or 10th day in that inside sales job, there was a competition for us to partner up and deliver a message around HP's converged infrastructure platform, which, you know, as a kid with 2 degrees that weren't really worth much in that setting and no real understanding of the business, that was a scary proposition. And I remember quite vividly, you know, fumbling and bumbling through the entirety of the 7 minutes that felt like 70. But one thing I learned, and again, I go back to, you know, challenging yourself to do the hard work to really develop your skill set and finding good mentors to help you do it. You know, you folks on the line are looking at one of the best in the business in terms of delivering a message in Charlie. And I, for a very long time, over a number of years, became very focused on studying on, you know, how Charlie internalizes something and relays it in a way that felt really relatable for people. And so, you know, that fear for me slowly got chipped away with getting more confident in seeing how it should be done. And then just the very rudimentary practice of doing it over and over again. And before I had kids, my wife would beat me over the head because I'd stand in our kitchen and do the presentation I'm doing tomorrow about, you know, 500 times before I had to do it. And And now that's one of the most enjoyable parts of my job is doing those types of engagements. So that was a big fear for me in the start, and I'm sure lots of folks can relate with that.
Yep, absolutely. And the one thing that I would say, that the essence of what I just heard from you is, and I'll use the F word, you have to be willing to fail, right? WTF. It's the willingness to fail, to learn from your failures, to really move on and move through these things. Because when you look at it, you think that I stand up on a stage, 1,000 people in front of me, 3,000 people in front of me. And to your point, I practice and I practice and I practice for hours and hours. I can't take my suit jacket off when I'm done because I'm absolutely drenched. If you don't have a nervous edge on pushing yourself, then you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. And Lauren, maybe could you talk a little to the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll echo Zach. I mean, I think presenting still to this day is something that, I have to work on. Presenting on a stage, just the thought for me is terrifying. But a lot of the time when we're having conversations with customers, I try to look at it less as a presentation, but more, they want to hear from us. What is Microsoft doing? What, is your experience in the industry with other hospitals, specifically in my role today? And so for me, I make sure that I come with, a valuable insight and maybe an opinion or a viewpoint that they haven't necessarily heard before. And I think a lot of that just comes from preparation, experience. So, having had healthcare for about 6 years, I've heard some things, multiple times, and it just comes with, practice, experience, and really kind of learning from any of those failures kind of in the past. So.
Yep. Hard work. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
So I mentioned, sales is oftentimes the highest paid hard work and the lowest paid easy work. What's your experience been with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if the harder you work in sales, the more results you see. I think you mentioned it before, sales is a results game. So it's probably one of those roles that you can, tie your results to how hard you're working. Similarly, if you're not working as hard, you might not see those results. And I think that we're in a unique position where you can really create your own destiny, to sound a little bit cheesy, but the harder you work and the more effort you're willing to put in, the more you can get out of this role. And I think, technology specifically, it's ever changing, it's exciting. There's a lot of hard work that's required, but it's also very rewarding, when you get to end of job and, you've created something that's, been truly fantastic for a customer. So.
Yep. And you've certainly done that. I mean, I loved watching you ascend, through your whole career progression, as I have with you, Zach. Did you find in your career that you had to push your way forward into advancement, or did you find yourself pulled into new roles? What was your experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say both, right? It starts with having a desire and a hunger to advance yourself professionally, and for me, that was always kind of fueled by, two things. One, a new challenge and being able to grow as a professional is a driving factor, but part of it as well is advancing, myself professionally in terms of compensation and taking care of my family and all that good stuff. And, I've had 2 daughters go through diapers, and those can be expensive as well. So that was a motivating factor there. But yeah, to the question of pulling or being pushed, it has to be both. You have to really have a real desire to get to that next level, because whether it's tech sales or any type of sales that rewards people well, there's a bunch of competition, right? And Lauren experiences that every day. Charlie, you do as well, and even in your line of work today, we all have customers or people that we're trying to sell ourselves to, right? And there's always somebody that's eager to do the same on the other side. So I think it starts with that, but I'd be totally, lying if I didn't say that you have to have good people in your corner as well. And that starts with building a brand, a personal brand that resonates with people, whether that's, people you work with, or for the folks on the phone, people within your class. You have to build a brand with the people you sell to, right, as well, so that they would, speak well on your behalf. And so to that degree, definitely was fortunate to be pulled into some spots because of my personal brand and pushing on the other end. So you kind of got to marry both to get to where you want to be, is my point there.
Yeah, and both of you have done an excellent job with that. And what I'd offer to everyone who's listening today is that if you put yourself out there and you push the notion that you want to progress, that you want to grow into new roles, that you seek mentors to help you manage your blind spot, oftentimes the roles that both of you have enjoyed, you've been pulled into because we knew what you were pushing for. And it's really so important. And oftentimes you see people that are very despondent that, Zach and Lauren landed into field roles that may not have even been posted, because we know they've got the hunger to get there. And the thing about sales that I love is, the harder you work, the greater your results. And oftentimes people fool themselves into thinking, I've worked so hard for 6 months, 12 months, I've built this tremendous funnel full of opportunities and I'm successful now. So now I start to take my foot off the gas. And then your pipeline shrinks and you start into the trough of disillusionment because you thought you made it and you thought you found success. But the reality is that you've got to keep learning, you've got to keep growing. It is a results contest, so you've got to be better than that next person from the competition down the road if you're going to get to where you want to be. Lauren, I'll come back to you. How did you embrace the notion of being a persistent student of the business? Where do you find the time and how do you prioritize that when you're managing a busy life and a busy career?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll say when I started at HPE, knowing nothing about server storage networking, I had to spend, enough time to familiarize myself with what I was selling. That was kind of first and foremost. And then once you start to get comfortable with, your product, you start to listen to some of the specialists. So like I would go, to meetings with Zach as an example, and just understand his pitch around storage and some of the customer objectives and start to learn, on the job. And I think it's, I'm always learning. I think it's, whether it's reading an article that's somehow relevant to my business or, building my personal brand kind of around healthcare specifically, spending a lot of time to understand, what does that industry look like? What's happening in the industry? And then just staying, relevant with what's happening with your own company as well. That was really important to kind of staying on top of what I was selling. And then now being at Microsoft, we have kind of, I'll say, mandatory monthly training days, which I think is fantastic. Everyone takes that day to, certify themselves, whether it's, a course that Microsoft offers, if it's, an external group or certification, I'll say like CompTIA, but, remaining an individual who's always learning and not just stopping at, okay, I got the account executive role, I can sit back and put my feet up. Your customers are always learning too. And so you want to stay ahead of them there as well.
Yeah, you want to be relevant so that you can have meaningful conversations and dialogues. And there's no better way to press than to stay as close to the leading edge as you possibly can. I know for me, Sunday mornings, my wife and kids always thought I was nuts because I would always reserve 2 hours, and that was my learning time. I'd go to YouTube and I'd look at competitors' videos. Like it's amazing. You don't have to work for a Microsoft or a Hewlett Packard Enterprise to have great training programs, because in today's connected world, you can go find so much on your own through CompTIA, through Ryerson, but through the public web that's out there. I think you can also find a lot, and Zach, you touched on it, with mentors, right? So how did you leverage your mentor-mentee relationships over the course of your career, Zach, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it started with folks not knowing that they were my mentors, right? Which I encourage everybody to do. You know, it's back to seeing somebody that you think is successful at something, and just watching them and just trying to get as much time with and around them as possible to see how they work. But I can't overstate how important good mentors are for career progression, specifically in this industry, but I'm sure across all. I've been really fortunate to have some people that were very open with me about not just, you know, what they thought my strengths were, but I openly solicited my challenges and weaknesses and to get somebody that would be honest with you about that is a really important thing. But I think I found over the course of the last few years, what has been equally rewarding is the ability to be a mentor, right? And that relationship is one that doesn't always need to feel like, you know, somebody that's been really successful, you know, giving advice to somebody that's maybe starting. There's an incredible amount of goodness that can be shared both ways. And I'll give you an example. You know, in traditional mentor-mentee relationships, you know, you take somebody who's more senior and they've been in role for a long time, or they've had a lot of experience in a given career, and you match them with somebody that, you know, maybe is trying to get to that point or get more experience. People think that's one way, you know, somebody preaching to the one that has less experience, but there's really simple things like, you know, this millennial generation, the younger generation, has incredible skills around social media and online presence, right? And you'd be amazed in the sales community of people that have been around for a long time that that's just not part of their selling kit. And the ability just to give them, you know, places to start is something that's valuable that goes the other way. So it's just a small kind of encapsulated example of you really need good people in your corner. And I think there's a lot that, you know, younger folks that are early in career can offer back up the chain to folks if they can get into mentorship type relationships.
Totally agree. I'm in a world right now where I don't have a lot of folks to mentor, and the gray beard in me has really helped me slide down in the social world of selling and keeping relevance. But I would tack on to what you just said, that if you're fortunate enough to have a good mentor, cherish that relationship and take it very, very seriously, because it's not about getting together for an informal coffee chat once a month. It's all about getting together to get feedback on, you know, what does your mentor think are your blind spots, or to Zach's point, your weaknesses, and how do you overcome them? And when your mentor gives you the gift of guidance, take note and work on it. I've had so many mentees that thought it was just a coffee chat. And, you know, your mentor's time is very, very valuable. And I would say cherish the opportunity and have an accountability agreement that I'm going to get these 3 things done before our next meeting 30 days from now. Lauren, coming back to you, have you ever felt like you'd taken on a new challenge and that you were having second thoughts? Did I advance too far, too fast? And what did you do if you experienced that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll say the jump from inside sales to an account executive was, you know, a role that I wanted. I had a great mentor who was actually an account executive at Hewlett Packard at the time. And she thought I would be great for the role. But really, when I stepped into that role, it was scary. Went from, you know, executing on a strategy, more tactical, you know, day-to-day activities, to really building the strategy and owning the quota. And it's a big jump. I think, you know, at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, for example, we were great to have roles and kind of between where you got to, you know, somewhere between inside sales rep and an account executive, but it was scary. It's a lot of pressure. It was, but I would say at the same time, you know, took that role. I wanted that role, and realized that it was, you know, similar to when I joined HPE as an inside sales rep. There was a ton that I needed to learn. So really took that opportunity to say, okay, now that I'm in this new role, you know, I need to start learning again, and make sure that, you know, I'm prepared when I go into meetings, and that, you know, if I'm connecting with my mentor, you know, ask them all the questions that I'm not able to kind of figure out day to day around, you know, account strategy and all the things that I wasn't necessarily doing, I guess, as an inside sales rep. But I would say, I mean, it's a scary transition. It's a lot more accountability, but at the same time, again, you're really kind of controlling your own destiny there. The harder you work, the more effort you put in, the more you know, the positive results start to come in. So, yeah.
If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. You know,
Absolutely.
the one thing about sales is it only looks easy. It's not, right? But it's a rewarding challenge. And, you know, a lot of people have made, you know, great careers starting in sales and growing into many different roles. Like you start in sales today, it doesn't necessarily mean you won't end up living your marketing dream as your next role at Microsoft, Lauren, or wherever you may go. You know, Zach, it is true career door opener in sales. It has been for me. It's been absolutely fantastic watching you, Lauren, watching you, Zach, Amninder. So many people come in through the inside sales door and find, you know, success and really find satisfaction in your personal and professional growth. So I apologize. I learned a little too late that my slides were not being shared through the earlier part of the 4 levels of selling. I will get that deck over to Adnan and Jessica, and hopefully we can send it out to all of you. You certainly didn't miss much in the way of value there. Zach, Lauren, thank you so very much for your insightful comments and sharing so many of your experiences. I will share the screen briefly so that you have my information where you can get a hold of me if you do have questions or comments that you want to send my way after we're done today. I'd be more than happy to engage. And this is what I looked like before COVID started. My last haircut was January 10th. And with that, Adnan, I think I will send it back to you for Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Charlie. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Zach. So please stay on your video and your mics. I will share a screen with everyone just so you can see how you can ask a question with us today. So just here, just want to indicate that you can either leave a question in the chat function and I can read it out. If you'd like to ask a question directly yourself, if you raised your hand, there's an emoji in Zoom to raise your hand, or any emoji that you can find in Zoom on the participant section. We can have you raise the question yourself as well. So we have our first question. It's come on the chat. The question is about, would you mind sharing some advice on how to effectively build your personal brand?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump if you'd like. I got kind of a couple ways there. There's kind of the more superficial way that I would encourage everybody to get comfortable and familiar with as you embark, if you do, in a sales journey. And that's what you think of LinkedIn being participatory in those types of social media type platforms, and using it as a way to highlight some of your success and your skills. That's a really simple and easy way. What's a bit harder, but I think a lot more effective, is working hard and doing good work is the way that most people will connect you with a positive personal brand. And I think that's the one single most important thing in terms of wanting to progress your career, is creating a brand for yourself with your peer group that you work with potentially leaders within an organization, and ultimately your customer as a salesperson, whatever they may look like, having their buy-in and them being able to attest to your work style being a positive experience for them. That's the best personal brand builder, in my opinion.
And I would add that your question has so much importance to your career journey. And I'll tell you why. You know, your personal brand is what represents you. It's what speaks for you when you can't speak for yourself. And so you need to be thoughtful and deliberate as you put your brand plan together. And I would suggest that if you haven't, please think about doing it now, and start with your values. What do you stand for? And what will you not stand for? And then take a look at all your social media platforms and ask yourself if the personal brand you represent today is congruent with what you think you want to project. I have failed so many people through the hiring process because they came in and they presented a personal brand that was completely incongruent with the actions and activities that they were posting on social media. And they were incredibly bright. I'm sure they were incredibly talented, but the mistake that they made was they showed behavioral traits in their brand online that I could not stand for, and they could not be a part of the team. So I would suggest that your question is brilliant, and you should be managing your brand now because it's going to matter tomorrow. It's kind of hard to erase a lot of the things that we do on social media.
I'll add to that as well. So I would say another thing as you start to go through your career progression, there's opportunity that I think within there to rebrand yourself a little bit. And I'm in terms of, the roles that you take, the areas or industries that you decide to specialize in. So for example, I started working in healthcare when I was at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And I thought it was really exciting. There was a ton going on within that industry. And so I've really tried to brand myself, alongside that healthcare industry as well. So I think you always have that opportunity as you, start to, progress in your career to really shape what you want everyone to see your brand as. So. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. So there's another question that's come through the chat function. That says, I work as a technology sales associate and I often run into transactional type customers, mostly concerned about money first. How would you turn that kind of sale around to one that is about value, being able to add on warranties and other products on top of that? That's like a sales strategy question, trying to see under the hood here.
So, I mean, it really comes back to needs, right? If someone was to walk into a technology store and say, I need a tablet, if you gravitate towards the product that's on sale, it's very hard to add value with warranty and accessories without asking first, what will you be using that tablet for? And, if the response is that, because of COVID-19, I'm taking so much more notes and I'm not a very good typist and I'd like to use a stylus, it automatically eliminates a whole host of products that you have and would advance you to the devices that have stylus available. So it's really connecting with your client to understand the needs and how they will derive value from it, and then aligning the offering and opportunity to it. Because cheap and cheerful, if it doesn't provide the functionality, it's not worth anything. And conversely, if someone was buying an automobile and you were trying to sell them something high end and they were using it for a pizza delivery vehicle, the complete reverse holds true. So it's really understanding how people are going to use and derive value.
Awesome. So thank you. So one is directed towards Zach. The next question. You mentioned how you initially had a fear of public speaking. I'm curious, what were steps you took to get better at it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So again, going back to watching people who are good at it, and I kid you not, Charlie is and was the best. So that was a way for me to learn. And then it's really progressively challenging myself with larger and larger audience as I was given the opportunity to do so. My first audience was my wife in the kitchen, as I mentioned, and she got very sick of me, trying to teach her about top of rack switching in a data center, but I did it anyway. And then from there, looking very proactively for opportunities to find a slightly bigger audience, whether it's internally with people you trust or externally with people that, give you a big chance to kind of fail and learn from it. There's really no shortcut to overcoming it. It's repetition, and it's challenging yourself to go out there on a limb, maybe not feel like you did it perfect, but internalize and take back what went well and build off of it until you're really comfortable out there.
And Zach, I think you've exceeded my abilities in that regard. And I remember the time that we were in Vancouver doing the road show, and I went to do my own rehearsals at around 8 o'clock at night, only to find Zach already on the stage presenting and doing his dry runs. And if I'm not mistaken, your wife was within a few days of delivering your first baby. So unwavering commitment to excellence that you have, my friend.
I made it home just in time. We almost named her Charlie because of the whole ordeal, but yeah, it was close.
So I'll go to the next question, just in the interest of time. So there's a question from Jenny, who's asked, I'm curious how you would handle a dilemma in selling when you need a sale, but the product does not serve perfectly to what the customer's need is. So do you let the customer know about the bad side? Like, how do you manage that? Lauren?
I can take this one. Yeah, sure. So I would say, ultimately you're trying to build trust with your customers. So I would say if you leave out that it doesn't actually address the problem, they're not going to trust you in the future. But I think what you can shift the focus to, trying to understand, maybe they're not fully understanding the challenge, or maybe there's another product that you have that fits better. But I think it's all about building trust. As much as you need the sale, you need to make it work for the customer. Otherwise, they won't buy from you again.
So the next one is kind of more specific about just career trajectories and sales. So there's a question about being a fourth-year business technology management student. Like, how does one get their start in tech sales? What are the titles of entry-level roles, and how much experience do you need to start? So yeah, this kind of relates to a question I was going to pose: is if you can help students understand, what is inside sales versus an account executive, and where do you start off when Charlie, you spoke about transaction sales and things like that. So when, as a new talent in the tech industry, where do you start?
So I know we're in a different time right now, so I'm not sure how Ryerson hosts career fairs, but I would encourage you to explore career fairs. If you're interested in tech, look at the tech events that CompTIA hosts and join them. They're free, right? You can come to them. And then the third piece I would share with you is we have always hired for ambition, and we train for skill. And if you use your ambition to orient yourself to the companies that you want to work for, to what their strategy and their value is, the more you know about me and my company, if you're trying to land in a role, the better equipped you'll be to actually secure that. I'm going to leave the second part on inside sales versus account exec to Lauren and Zach to touch on.
Yeah, I would. Oh.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Sure. So I would say to Charlie's point, understand the companies that you want to work for. I think that's important. Target a few that you could see yourself working for, you like their values, etc. I would say when you're looking at an entry level position, if they're entry level, they wouldn't require 3 to 5 years experience, but they want to see that you have communication skills, you're able to overcome challenges, some skills that you would have from group projects within a university, or maybe part-time jobs, or other experience that maybe doesn't directly relate, but there's skills there that are transferable to a sales role.
Yeah, and just to even simplify the difference between a kind of inside sales function versus an account executive that we referenced a few times. Traditionally inside sales is more call based, so on the phone, or in today's new environment, a virtual setting. Traditionally, account executives are the ones that are face to face, on the road, going to meet clients, and do some more kind of customer intimacy, face to face type interactions. So that's the real difference. But I'll tell you, the best inside sellers make it feel like they're account executives, and the lines between those two functions have never been more blurred than they are today.
Thank you for that. So one question I wanted to raise, just the question around tech industry and sales. So you think of the tech industry as students, you may think about coding, and those are the kinds of jobs, and that's really very important, obviously, in the tech industry to build the technology. But can you speak to the importance of sales for like a tech company? Like what does that look like? So Charlie, and then Lauren, and Zach again.
Yeah, I mean, all of the different roles matter, but until something is sold, the company's purpose, erodes, and so, the sales part of the technology sector has many different nuances to it, and I would say don't be confused by inside sales versus field, or an account executive role. The experience that we're going through with the pandemic will forever change the sales landscape, right? The whole notion of thinking that you're going to go for lunch or dinner and have a couple of martinis with a client, the picture of that is no longer attractive to customers any more than it is to employers. And we really look at, as sales organizations, how do customers want to buy these days, and how do we meet them on their terms? How do they want to understand what we do, and how do we get that information to them at the time that they want to satisfy their curiosities? And the titles and the labels and the roles today really matter less. I think Lauren mentioned it earlier, getting your foot in the door and getting started with something that you can love and be passionate about. If it doesn't work out, be willing to fail, move on to the next company or the next opportunity. And I would also say that bring your insights and innovation, right? The different ways and means of selling, you all know more about social media than I will ever know, and you can help leaders change the way that they structure roles, the way that we create it. But sales is an incredibly important function, not just in the tech industry, but in all industries.
Yeah, I'll add on to that too. Charlie's absolutely right. I recall, at a time when we were all working together at HP, we were really proud to share with our clients that we spend $3 billion annually on our research and development function, right? And so when you think about tech, I think traditionally people think more about those types of activities as being part of the tech industry, but to be able to fund a research and development arm that has such massive scope and scale, it's all coming from the sales of the end product or service that's being delivered to a client. So, everything has to work in a really synergistic fashion. But at the end of the day, without sales producing revenue into a company, the other pieces of it become more difficult to fund and advance, right? So it's important.
Awesome. Thank you. And Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, if you're coming from a technical background, it's an asset to the company, right? I mean, I think everyone's different experience and diversity within sales is what's really changing how we're doing a lot of our selling today. So, I mean, there have been many people that I've worked with that have come right out of university. There's been a few, that have technical backgrounds. And I think it all just adds to, the diversity and the creativity that comes with selling. So, I wouldn't limit yourselves by what your degree says. I think there's so much out there in terms of sales that you can do. Kind of, we're looking, for skill or for, your personality and your background and skills can be kind of taught as you joining the organization.
Awesome. Thank you. And then I'll end with just one question that's actually from our advisory board chair, Rita Longcar from Veritas. She says, well, what is the one next step these students need to do following this call if they're interested in tech sales? What would you recommend, each of you?
Join our next CompTIA Business Technology Community event and let the folks across this industry that attend know you're there and show some interest. Find a relationship that you can start because CompTIA, I think, is heavily invested with Ryerson in this whole Tech Talent Accelerator initiative because all of the members really want to have a relationship with all of you. And I see Adam Prue has just given the link to the Canadian Business Technology Community in the chat box. Look at the events and join us.
Lauren?
Yeah, I'd say from my lens, to the point of that we touched on a few times about understanding kind of roughly where you want to go. If you have an interest in a particular company or a particular space within the IT industry, you'd just be amazed at how much free education and training that companies push out into the market about their brand, about their product set, about their services and solutions. Because all of us, whether you're at Microsoft or Veeam or elsewhere, we want our solution and our brand to be pervasive throughout our customer base. So we have a whack load of stuff, whether it's any of those companies or Amazon or wherever. You'll find it if you search hard enough, and it's a good baseline to understand a bit more about where you might want to land at the end of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I would echo that as well. I think immerse yourself in all of the, research events, anything that you can do within the tech industry to, start to build connections. That's really big. And then understand which companies you're interested in and really kind of dive into starting to understand what that business looks like.
Awesome. So the part, as you've all mentioned, is, really connect with the industry in any platform you can find, and now with everything being virtual, it's actually more easier to do that with a click of a Zoom link button. So definitely that effort is what you recommend, and then also to it's important that if you're thinking of sales in the tech industry, anywhere you're applying, you better know their company, their products, and you do a deep dive in understanding that as a preparation for pursuing a position in that organization. Awesome. So thank you so much. So with that, I think we're 11 minutes over than when we were supposed to, but appreciate you all three of you sticking around. Thank you so much, each of you, Charlie, Lauren, Zach. Really appreciate each of your time here in contributing your insights to our students. And please, if you are a student still online, please note that we are having our next event on Thursday next week, and it'll be focused on cybersecurity and some other insights from a couple of cybersecurity executives. And the RSVP link, where you can find in the chat function, we did paste it there. All right. With that, thank you everyone. At this time, you'll hear a loud recording thing saying the meeting has stopped recording in a second, and then we're good to go. Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, folks.